How does an organization like Axians go about recommending which solution is actually best for each organization?
The first question I ask every customer is, what are you trying to do? I've had RFPs before where we've won the RFP and then the first thing I've said is, right, now what are you actually trying to do? Because sometimes it's very difficult. You as a business will have a challenge and you'll go, right, I have a challenge, I'll build a business case to fix that challenge, I'll apply for budget from the board, I'll get sign off for that, they approve the business case and the budget's approved. You've then got to try and translate that business requirement into technical requirements to then get the market. And that can be quite hit or miss. And if it's very clear cut, it's quite kind of like sensible to kind of translate across. But sometimes it can be really quite difficult and you can miss quite a lot. So the first thing is what fundamentally they're trying to do. What are the things they care about? What is things like scale, location, where are they going to be? Sometimes it boils down to simple things like, can I get spares to a location within a reasonable SLA to make it worth time? So from an SD-WAN perspective, there's still functionally a CPE. There's a customer premise equipment terminating that network where the local network plugs into and then the wide area begins. That can be virtual, but it's got to sit on something that you can connect a physical circuit to. So whether it's virtual on a ESXi environment, so it's like a hypervisor and it's a little image, or whether it's a dedicated box or whether it's a dedicated vendor platform, there's something there. If that goes bang, then people like cake and eat. They want next generation network that drives efficiencies, but they also want 4-hour SLA. So sometimes, the whole design can be thrown to, I can get that box to that location in 4 hours. And that steers you towards certain things. So a lot of the large vendors are twigging to this, and their distribution of their hardware is becoming quite a big thing for them. But that also is where partners like ourselves can step in. We have our own forwarding locations, so we can adapt the SLAs we can take from the vendors to give us more control over what SLAs we give to our customers. So we remove a little bit of that from the end decision-making process, but if it's a global deployment, for example, you want to know you can get a box into the Bermuda within a certain time frame. Outside of that, it's entirely use case driven. It's what features are you keen on and why, and what do you want to get out of it and why? What do you have now? What doesn't work? What does work? What kind of things you're trying to kind of carry over? What kind of things you want to leave behind? Also, it can be affected by who is going to be involved in the decision-making process, but also who's going to be on the customer side helping with the design. Going back a couple of years, the design would have been a heavy techie coming in on the customer side, call it gamekeeper, and then we'd have techie hitting heads together. They'd sit down, they'd work out stuff in a very kind of, granular detail. What we're finding is a lot more input from the line of business. We're finding a lot more of the business want an input into how things are designed because it materially affects them, and they've now twigged the fact that they can leverage this to give them an extra edge over their competition. So when you've got external, less technically able contributors towards the overall solution, that can influence the kind of technology you use as well. I mean, some of the technologies we use are very traditionally technically built. There are some applications and some platforms that we use who literally will group things together in a way that anyone could understand. So you can say, I want my Teams, my voice, and my video application to go very, very quickly across the network. And you can almost build it in those sort of models. So there's ones that are using the traditional sort of technical phraseology and building blocks to build the kind of configs. And then there are some that will use very standardized phrases that most people can understand, which means you can involve more people from the business in it. And that can be a steerer. So sometimes you're looking at things that are technical features and customer A would like, this is important to them, that's important to them, they're not bothered about that, and that will steer you a certain way. And sometimes it's the non-technical aspects that almost steer you, and it's the fact that they want anybody to be able to read the reporting that comes out. They want to look at what type of reporting you can get, what kind of things you can get out of the box from a visibility perspective. And then the audience, being technical, non-technical, everything in between, will drive the kind of platform that you end up using because that becomes a key criteria for them. There are what you'd call functional and non-functional criteria for how we make decisions around what platforms we use, and it's down to the customer as to where that sort of balance works.